Hello and welcome to this tutorial from the File ICT Academy video library. In this tutorial, I am going to explain what is called absolute reference inside Microsoft Excel. So we're going to use this as an example. So what we need to do here is, let's say for example, we have a price increase by 125%, and we have the items here when we have their price in 2016, and we want to know what the price will be in 2016 if there's an increase, right? If the price has increased to 125%. So this is a simple calculation. We can just say this cell times 125%. Now be careful, this 125%, you have to type 125 and then you press Control Shift and the number 5 on your keyboard to have the percentage sign, right? So when you do that, if you say B4 times C2 and you press enter, that will give you a price increase of 1,500. Now in most cases, what we do is whenever we have the first results, we use the autofill and then drag so that we'll be able to have the other results. But as you can see, in this case it does not happen. Now what you have to understand is that Excel calculates relatively. Now let me show you what I mean when I say relative reference. So let me just go back to, for example, sheet 2. Let me just delete here and show you something. Now let's say for example I just find the total of these cells. Now what I did is, if you look at the first one here, we said equals to sum bracket open B3 is to D3, right? B3 is to D3. So that means I'm calculating the values from the left. So when I use autofill and drag it, Excel will give me the answers to the other one, because Excel will calculate them relatively based on the first one. So when I double click here, you'll see because the first one was B3 is to D3, then Excel will make the second one B4 is to D4, and the third one will be B5 is to D5. Now let me just press Control and tilde, right? Tilde is the key above the tabs. So when I press Control and tilde, that will reveal the formulas. Because the first one we said B3 is to D3, then the second one, as you can see, will be B4 is to D4, B5 is to D5, and so on. So that's how Excel calculates whenever you use the autofill and drag, so that you'll be able to have the other answers. So that's what they call relative reference inside Microsoft Excel. Now if you look at here, let's just go back to our information here. But here what happens here, what we said is we want B4 times C2, right? That's what we do. That's what we did in the first place. We said B4 times C2. So when we use Excel, let me just reveal the formula. So I'm going to press Control and tilde again. Now let's see what is going on here. We said B4 times C2. So Excel will calculate it relatively because we use the autofill. So you'll see that Excel will continue and say, yes, because the first one is B4 times C2, then I will make the second one B5 times C3. Have you seen that? B6 times C4, B7 times C5. And what is really happening here is that you'll see that when we double click here, because here we said B4 is the cell on the left times the cell on top, right? So that means it only leaves one single cell here. So that's the information the Excel is going to use so that it will be able to evaluate the other ones. So here what is happening is B5, that is this cell here, times this cell, and we already know that C3 is containing a text value, so we will not be able to calculate that one. And if you come to this other cell, you see that you have B6 times C4. C4 is containing what? 1,500. That's why we have this huge value. And here also we have B7 times C5. So B7 is here and C5 is here. So that's why we are having these wrong values. Now to solve this problem, we have to make the cell C3 absolute, because we want all these values that are here, all these values that are on the price 2015, we want them to be multiplied by 125%. Now, to be able to tackle that error, we have to make this cell, the cell C2, we have to make it absolute. So how do we make it absolute? We can manually add the dollar sign. That means by pressing Shift and 4 in front of the C and after the C. Are you getting that? You can press, you can press Shift and 4 to have the dollar sign, as simple as that. Or if you want the quickest way, you can just click in front of the cell name that you want to make absolute and press the F4 function key. F4. When you press F4, that will do it for you quickly. So after doing that, what you need to do now, if you drag now, you'll see that you are going to have the correct answers. So let me press Ctrl and tilde to reveal the formulas. You'll see now only this other side is changing, the left side, B4, B5, B6, B7, but the right hand side, because we make it absolute, so when we drag, it will remain the same. That one will not change. So that's the idea of absolute reference. So always be careful when you are calculating in Excel. Put absolute reference in mind. If you are multiplying a lot of values with a single cell, you always have to put absolute reference in mind, right? I think this tutorial helps. So thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.